such a time as this.
And welcome to For Such a Time as This, the place where there is no such thing as a silent witness. I am here today with Rick, as always, discussing in Times. How are you, Rick?
Doing fine, thank you, Pastor.
All right, we're gonna before we get into it, we always like to point out to people our sponsors. We are constantly getting shadow banned, and so we have reverted to digital advertising, and Prestige Kitchen and Bath helps us sidestep the algorithms and the shadow banning. They're located at 1023 South Arlington Heights. Phone number 847-348-0066. Prestige Kitchen and Bath. And also, we'd like to highlight the other sponsor, FullArmor.shop. The Full Armor of God is a T-shirt, a Christian T-shirt business that allows you to witness to any room you walk into without saying a word. Their motto is only the strong can wear our T-shirts. And so visit them at FullArmor.shop, FullArmor.shop. All right. Today we will again discuss what's going on in the Middle East as we eagerly await the coming of our Lord. Here's the first clip talking about northern Israel and the war that's soon to break out in earnest against Hezbollah. Here we go.
As I said before, the volume of rockets and missiles fired into Israel from Lebanon is increasing, and no one knows how long the border battle can last before the gloves come off. Diplomats are trying, so far without success, to mediate a ceasefire based on Hezbollah's withdrawal from the border with Israel. But Hezbollah has vowed to continue firing missiles at Israel as long as Israeli forces are fighting in the Gaza Strip against Hamas. And Israel isn't going to stop fighting Hamas until the threat it poses to Israel has been eliminated. That means the gloves will probably have to be taken off very soon. Please join me in praying urgently for this situation. As I said before, the IDF is ready for a battle with Hezbollah, and there is no doubt we will win. But the Israeli home front will surely come under intense rocket fire for at least the first few days of such a conflict. This will be difficult for Israel, and we're going to need a lot of prayer and support from our friends to get through it.
So everything that's going down with the Houthis in Yemen, it says we're not going to stop until the Gaza war is over. But they didn't mention the Hezbollah war in northern Lebanon. So it doesn't look like they're going to be giving up. They're going to have another reason to keep going. So, the Gaza war, this one's winding down, and the northern war on Israel's northern border is ramping up.
Yeah, and I think the Gaza war is pretty much over. Now they're just flooding the holes, flooding those tunnels, as the Gazans are hiding in rat holes. Can we say that? Rat holes?
Yeah, a mile long, hundreds of miles long.
And so now it's just the conventional war is over. It's just a matter of rooting them out of where they are.
Well, they do have to go down to the IDF is going to go down to Rafah, the border between Israel and Gaza, and they're going to have to clean that up too. But I don't know how Egypt is going to react to that. I don't
Clean it up how? What does that mean?
Well, there's still there's hundreds of thousands of refugees in southern Gaza at the Egyptian border. It's
but they're not militants, are they?
No, they're not militants, but there's tunnels that go from Egypt to Gaza. So
I thought Egypt shut those tunnels down.
I don't know. Israel says we're going down there, we're going to inspect everything, and we're going to make sure it's tight. So they are going to go down to
but the
Egyptian border.
But the heavy fighting is over, right?
Well, I don't know what's going to happen because everyone
Okay.
keeps going more south.
Gotcha.
I don't know how many of the leaders are there.
Gotcha.
So I heard it's probably going to take them a year to completely clean everything up.
But the heavy, it's probably take them a lot longer than that to clean things up. But are there still rebels who will shoot missiles off in that area? I don't think so, right?
I don't know about that.
Close.
I just know
That's
that they said
close.
our next stop is the border, and we got to stop supplies coming into Hamas and stop transporting rockets, even though they manufactured many of them.
I got you. Okay, here's the next video about something I never thought of when I thought about desert in Israel: winter fighting.
In January and February will be full of headlines about the snow, rain, and generally cold, wet, stormy winter weather. But sadly, in the opening months of 2024, we are preoccupied with much less cheerful topics. That would be the growing possibility of a large war in the northern border and the readiness of the IDF to fight such a war. The weather is part of this story, however, as we need to think about how we will fight in this harsh winter weather. Of course, the other side is also facing this question, and that's also something we need to consider. It might be better for us to fight them in the winter if we're better prepared and equipped for it than they are, and vice versa. You may have heard that the terrain and conditions in northern Israel in the winter are difficult, including heavy rains, snow, fog, and extreme cold. There are advantages and disadvantages to these conditions for both sides, including the fact that it's difficult to see far in such conditions without special equipment. The IDF has these special equipments, but Hezbollah and the other Iranian-backed militias we're facing probably do not have these equipments. Other things we have that they might not have include vehicles designed to operate in the cold, winter clothing, and many other things. In short, the IDF is equipped and very well prepared to operate in this weather, but the enemy forces are much less so. That doesn't mean that it will be easy, but it does mean we'll have some important advantages in this war. Training and preparations have been ongoing for 4 months, led by the soldiers of the Reserve Paratrooper Brigade, who are on standby in northern Israel. This reserve unit has an impressive attendance of over 140%, meaning many men who were not even called to come showed up anyway to volunteer to the IDF. Do you understand how much Israelis love their country? I personally saw many soldiers that left their families in Europe or the United States and came to the military and volunteered with our units in the northern border in the first 2 months of this war.
Rick, the only way I'm jumping out of a plane is if it's going down.
And hope that the plane gets there first, huh?
I'm not jumping out. That's impressive to see men willingly jumping out of an airplane. But anyway, I never thought about that, and I think most people have never thought about snow when you're talking about desert land.
Exactly. We were in Israel 6 years ago, and it was a desert. I don't know.
Yeah.
With a few oasis spots and farms here, but the mountains, there's snow in the mountains. They even have ski slopes in the mountains.
You know what? And you could tell he's kind of off, because he said, instead of talking about pleasant things, we're talking about war, as if snow and ice is pleasant to him. I don't know what's wrong with him. But anyway, we'll let that pass on him, because anyone who thinks snow and ice is a good thing, me being a southerner who never saw snow until he was 18 and came up north, that's craziness to me. But anyway, I guess in the desert, snow and ice is a good thing. It's a good thing. So, all right, here's the third one. Most people don't realize, and here's why I think the criticism of Israel is ludicrous, evil, dishonest, and irrational. It's because there are still over 100 hostages that Hamas still has and refuses to give up. Here we go.
An update now on the October 7 hostage crisis. Yesterday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced we are working to achieve another framework for a hostage release and explained his red lines, including no end to the war, no withdrawal of the IDF from the Gaza Strip, and no release of thousands of terrorists. The Prime Minister clarified Israel remains committed to achieving all three of its war aims, which are non-negotiable and which we intend to achieve simultaneously: destroying Hamas, releasing the hostages, and making sure that Gaza can never again pose a threat to the people of Israel.
Non-negotiable. I'm glad they're standing tall against Biden and his administration's persistence in standing down. They still have hostages. They still have hostages, Rick. I don't... Have people forgotten about that?
No, but America doesn't have red lines or non-negotiable. That's not in their vocabulary anymore.
America does have a non-negotiable, and that is to close the border. They're not going to do that.
Yeah, they're not going to do anything to
Biden's not
close
gonna
it.
do that.
So yeah,
Exactly.
so as far as affecting our country, but no, the hostages, and it's I just
Unbelievable.
can't imagine what is happening to those
Unbelievable to me.
hostages.
He continues with the hostage coverage.
An important reminder about the numbers. 253 people were abducted on October 7th. 253, not approximately 240, 253. Of those, 132 remain trapped in Hamas captivity, joining 4 more hostages from before the war. Of those 132 hostages, we know that at least 29 are dead, 28 murdered in Hamas captivity, and 1 killed in an unsuccessful rescue attempt. In total, Hamas has murdered at least 36 hostages. That figure was revised after the Israel police recently announced that Sergeant First Class Ran Gvili was in fact killed in the October 7 massacre, with his body then abducted into Gaza and Hamas now holding it for ransom. Time is running out for the 104 hostages we must presume to still be alive, and those from before October 7, those hostages we fear Hamas is starving and torturing and raping and executing in its terror dungeons. We repeat our demand for the immediate and unconditional release of the hostages, as the International Court of Justice has called for, and for unimpeded access for the Red Cross until they are all safely back home. That's the end of today's update. We'll now take your questions as always. Thank you.
No negotiation. None. Should be none. And these people who continue to rally for Palestine, boy, let's see them take your kids as hostages. What would you do then?
What would they do if they took them hostage too?
Oh man,
They are so. But that's the other side. It's evil. It's total evil. It's not
Total
right or
evil.
wrong or
total evil.
total evil.
Here's what the United States should do. If a Republican gets in there, here's what they should do. They should say, you know what? We're going to actually help. We're going to actually help the Palestinians. And we're going to actually pay for certain groups to go over to Palestine and unite with Palestine and Hezbollah in their efforts. Everyone who is part of the LGBTQ community, we're going to fly over for free. And you all unite with Hezbollah and Hamas and help them, okay, with your purple hair and your pink clothes. Help them and see how that goes. I think we should do that. I think we should do that.
If there's any buildings left, that's what they would be doing, throwing them. They'd be having roof parties, throwing off the roof. But
Superman parties, I call them. Fly like Superman.
no, they have no idea how
have no
evil these
idea.
people are. They're
They have
in
no idea.
another.
Ignorant.
They're in Neverland.
Ignorant. Well, your president actually engaged.
My president?
Your president.
Excuse me?
Your president.
I didn't vote for him.
Your president has engaged some of the most sophisticated U.S. weapons in his strike in the Middle East. The B-2 bombers.
The B-1s are based at Dyess Air Force Base in Texas and Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota, which is very close to Mount Rushmore, by the way. There are 2 squadrons at each base, which totals up to approximately 70 bombers across the Air Force. Social media started to light up with indications of the pending strikes early on February 2nd, with military aficionados posting flight path info assumed to be the B-1s and their in-flight refueling support en route to the Middle East. It appears the bombers hit the tankers at least twice each way off the coast of Nova Scotia and near the Strait of Gibraltar on the western edge of the Mediterranean Sea. The distance from either B-1 base to Iraq's western border with Syria is approximately 6,500 miles. And you can see from the timestamp of the tweet that documents the Nova Scotia tanking evolution at 10:08 Zulu, combined with a CENTCOM release that states the strikes occurred at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is 2100 Zulu, that the mission lasted more than 11 hours each way. Those early tweets about the B-1's transit caused a number of military experts to cry OPSEC violation, while others countered with the assertion that leaking the information was part of DoD's plan, and that their intelligence fusion could watch how the IRGC responded to the heads-up by moving stuff around, which would allow those locations to be targeted during any follow-on strikes. The strikes involved 7 areas, 4 in Syria and 3 in Iraq, hitting 85 targets using 125 JDAMs. This is a lot more firepower than what was brought to bear during previous post-October 7th strikes into those 2 countries, and the first time they've been hit simultaneously. The exact number of B-1s involved is unknown, but doing the math around the number of JDAMs each bone can carry, it could have been as few as 6 airplanes. Additionally, the Wall Street Journal wrote that the Jordanian Air Force was assigned targets associated with this mission, but there was no evidence beyond that to support that claim.
I'm sorry, the B-1s, not the B-2s. Rick, is Biden getting serious?
I don't know. I would hope so, but we're in a defensive position. They still say. So when you drop bombs on 85 sites.
That's defensive?
Is that defensive or is that offensive? They're
Who knows?
You can't.
These guys.
They just don't want to use the W. The W word is not in their vocabulary either. Oh, we're not at war. We're just a defensive position. I'm glad they did it. I hope it was effective. But I'm glad we're using some of our military assets. I never thought we would ever use them.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if they deterred. But I am aware that even after those bombs, they kept launching missiles, right? So they haven't determined enough. Yeah, they haven't cried uncle yet. So they're still fighting. Meanwhile, Israel, with their engineers and their scientists, are waging the war in a very, how should we say it, wise, sophisticated way with these new water pumps.
The IDF floods Hamas terror tunnels with huge pumps that can fill an Olympic-sized pool in only 7 minutes. This is the 117th day in the Hamas-Israel war, and I'm Yair Pinto reporting to you from Israel. Before we get into today's report, I would like to ask you to please share this video. This, together with praying about what you see in these videos, is the best way you can help us get the truth out about what is going on in Israel today. Now let's jump right into today's news. We have heard unconfirmed reports in the past about a plan to flood the Hamas terror tunnels, but now we have official confirmation of this. Several units in the IDF and the Ministry of Defense have developed a number of tools for injecting high-flow water into Hamas's underground tunnels in the Gaza Strip, adding to the toolbox that the IDF has for dealing with these complex tunnels. And this is the process. Part of a program called Atlantis that the IDF has been working on for many months includes the installation of pumps and pipes in many locations. But the engineers have also found a method to ensure that water is not just randomly being pumped into a hole in the ground. The computer programs guiding the system can direct the flow of water being pumped into the shafts and tunnels, where it will do the job of cleaning them without damaging the underground water or soil in the area. It's very high tech, and I'm sure it costs a lot of money to develop this kind of technology. But this is the way Israel does business, making sure to not do any unnecessary damage to civilian infrastructure while defending ourselves against terrorists. As a footnote, I'm sure that this technology will have many implications in agriculture and water management far beyond the destruction of Hamas's terror tunnels, and will be yet another way that Israel is blessing the whole world with its innovation and technology.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, leave the Israelis up. If they need something that hasn't been invented, they're going to invent it. They're
cool.
very resourceful.
And so what it's saying is not pumping seawater, it's pumping fresh water. Is that correct?
Water.
That's what it means by not damaging the
How many
underground
nations
stuff.
in the middle of a war would care about preserving
I know I would.
the land that they
Yeah, I know I would.
are trying to? I know, it's just amazing
Yeah.
how Israel goes out of the way to protect citizens, protect the land.
But they're the evil ones, Rick, remember?
You
they're
know,
the evil ones.
that's what I keep hearing.
They're the evil ones.
I keep hearing.
And now there's something very interesting, switching gears to the last video, there's something very interesting going on in Europe. And people are not, I don't think this is getting enough publicity.
We touched on it last week, but this is a video on it.
Angry farmers have descended on the heart of the European Union as leaders across the bloc gathered for talks in Brussels. The European Parliament was under siege, with eggs thrown and tractors clogging the centre of the city.
A European day of protest, the result of weeks of burning anger, now erupting into flames outside the European Parliament in Brussels. A public display EU leaders couldn't ignore from hundreds of fuming farmers. 1,300 tractors creating chaos outside the summit where EU leaders had gathered as riot police used tear gas to push back protesters who were setting tyres alight and throwing eggs. Tractors rolling through streets across the bloc, with farmers in Belgium, France, Portugal, Germany and Italy angry about the impact of low wages, heavy regulation and the influx of cheap imports, including from Ukraine, as EU leaders voted through another $82 billion aid package at what is now a pivotal moment in the war. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen meeting farmers afterwards.
It's very important that we find common solutions.
Nous avons ainsi obtenu.
As French President Emmanuel Macron pledged local concessions, but farmers say it's not enough to protect their livelihoods. In London, Karianne Greenbank, 9 News.
You have a rebellion, not just in one country, but across Europe, it seems like.
Yes, they want to shut down all the farmers.
And what craziness is it to shut down? Why would you shut down your own farmers? Evil, and I believe again how this is tied to the end time discussion is that they're going to have famine. Is going to be one of the horses released in Revelation 6.
Yeah, it's the third
throughout
the third horse.
The third horse, and so here's what's going on. All right, so I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but we're now going to switch gears to the religious topic of the day, which is going to be the wrath of God and the wrath of man. You set it up, Rick. You wanted to do this because people are having problems differentiating between the wrath of God and the wrath of man.
So people who talk about Daniel's 70th week and the day of the Lord, now that's a whole nother story. Is the day of the Lord one day? Is it a day in a period of time, a short period of time, a long period of time?
Context, yep.
But the day of the Lord is the wrath of God. So what is God's wrath and what is man's wrath? Mm-hmm. So we have some verses here we're going to put up, and then we'll make a few comments.
So here's the one verse in the Revelation that I think a lot of people who are, how can I say this, pre-mill, they believe the rapture happens before, pre-trib, before the tribulation. Revelation 3:10, because you have kept my word about patient endurance, I will keep you from the hour of trial that is coming on the whole earth to try those who dwell on the earth. I am coming soon. Hold fast what you have, so that no one may seize your crown. So, keeping you from the hour of trial, they say that therefore the church is raptured out of the earth because it's going to keep God is going to keep the church from the hour of trial. Hey, sketchy. What do you say, Rick?
Yeah, that's one verse, but there's so many verses that contradict that, and even as you go through,
contradict that interpretation.
Contradict that interpretation, right?
Yeah. So here you have 1 Thessalonians 5:9. For God has not destined us for wrath, but to obtain salvation through our Lord Jesus Christ. Verse 10, who died for us, so that whether we are awake or asleep, we might be with him. Again, this is used for people who believe that we are raptured pre-tribulation, and they use it as a proof text. But I would say to you, if you read this verse, it may be more damning to your position than helpful. It don't say what you think it says. God has not destined us for wrath. Agreed. But to obtain salvation through our Lord Jesus Christ. Are we talking about tribulation on earth, or are we talking about eternity? Verse 10, who died for us so that whether we are awake or asleep, we might live with him. That is talking about whether you die or you live. And I believe that encompasses whether you die underneath the rule of the Antichrist. I know Rick and I are different on that one. But this one I see is talking about the eternal damnation by which you will suffer the wrath of God for all eternity in the lake of fire. Rick?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the Greek. Is there another Greek word for wrath that distinguishes between godly wrath and human wrath?
I haven't really looked at it.
Okay,
no,
I was just curious. But no, I think your interpretation is right, Pastor.
Yeah, well, okay. All right, here we go. Revelation 15:1. Then I saw another sign in heaven, great and amazing, 7 angels with 7 plagues, which are the last, for with them the wrath of God is finished. Rick?
That specifically states that the 7 plagues, this is the bowl judgments, that this is specifically a part of God's wrath. It's not ambiguous at all.
And here's one of the things that I like to, I give my position as a post meal for the rapture, and this is one of my go-to verses, Revelation 16:15. Behold, I am coming like a thief. And if you look at it in context, Revelation 16:15 is after the first 6 bowls are poured out on the earth, and those bowls are clearly the wrath of God being poured out. 15, behold, I am coming like a thief. Blessed is the one who stays awake, keeping his garments on, that he may not go about naked and be seen exposed. I believe he's still saying he's coming, even though the bowls of wrath has been poured out on earth. He still hasn't come. Why? Because I'm coming like a thief. Verse 16, and they assembled them at the place that in Hebrew is called Armageddon. And so Armageddon is coming. They're about to war. And Jesus says he has not come yet. That's the way I interpret it. I don't know. You tell me.
So, yes, there is discussions on post-trib and pre-wrath and mid-trib. The main thing I can take away from everything that I've read is that there is no pre-trib rapture, and that the rapture happens somewhere after the abomination of desolation.
Once he's revealed, right?
Once he's revealed. I'm positive of that. Now, exact times, how long are the trumpet judgments? How long are the bowl judgments? Are they in the last 6 months of the 3.5 years? We don't know that. We don't know that. But I'm sure that the saints are going to be witnessing here on earth for part of the tribulation.
And the thing about it is, I think we're going to find out soon which view is which.
Yes.
Because I believe, I think Psalm 83 is already taking place. the prophecy in Zephaniah 2:4 is already it's pretty much being completed, at Gaza being raised. And when they turn their ire to the north, that being the IDF, I think Damascus is going to be the next city
off the map,
which is going to go also when the fighting ramps up there. And I think when Israel begins to, again, turns on Hezbollah in the north, in Beirut, Lebanon, and then you actually take out Damascus, and they start embarrassing more and more Islamic states, I think that's when the world is going to step in and force a peace treaty. Now, how long this lasts? Good question. Good question. I don't know when. I don't know the timing. But I think when you see a peace treaty being forced on Israel, I think that is the strong treaty being put on, in which the Antichrist is part of that treaty. And if I'm right, Rick, we're going to see two witnesses. Exactly how they look, I'm not sure. But you're going to see a massive coming back to the Lord of within Israel. I think what's going to happen with Israel. We'll see. So, hey, thanks a lot for being with us again for a discussion of end times today. As we keep you up on the current events, and we continue to look at that which God says in His Word, as we continue to watch for the Lord's coming. Again, thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you all for listening. Until next time.
For such a time as this,